Hi, everybody, this is Josh with Talk About Trek, and I am back again so soon because I have already finished up the fantastic novel Requiem, written by Kevin Ryan and Michael Jan Friedman. They work together, and from what I understand from what I read, uh, the majority of the idea was Kevin's, but they worked together to write this very fun, very interesting TNG novel that had me captivated, and I was able to read through in just a few short nights. So let's jump right into the facts here, as we can read them from the book. And Requiem was published by Pocket Books in 1994, of course, number 32 in the TNG numbered series. A cool looking cover. You have Picard, and then you have past Picard with his hair, and this interesting Gorn holding up his cylindrical device there. I like the cover. On the cover, while the Federation stands on the brink of war, Captain Picard is stranded in the past. Oh man, there's a book on the back of this thing. Well, let's read it for the sake of reading it here. Okay. 25 years ago, Captain Jean-Luc Picard conducted breakthrough negotiations with an aggressive race called the Gorn. Now, on the anniversary of that achievement, Captain Picard and the USS Enterprise are headed for the Gorn homeworld to continue that important work. Right? Okay. So when the ship stops to investigate a mysterious alien artifact, Captain Picard is suddenly hurled through time and space. Just as Commander Riker and the Starship Enterprise crew begin an impossible search for their captain, the Gorn summit goes terribly wrong. As war looms over the galaxy and Picard is desperately needed on the Gorn homeworld, the captain finds himself stranded in the past on a planet called Cestus III, at a crucial turning point in Federation history. Now caught in a deadly situation that challenges Picard's most cherished beliefs, he must weigh the fate of a world against the future of the Federation. Whoa, right? All right. The back isn't like too terribly spoilery, I guess, but again, I would have been I would have lost some of the fun surprises if I had read that. So again, I'm always glad to not read the back until the end. I think it's funner to read it afterwards, just to kind of see how close they got to the story, how much they gave away in the story. Unless you're really pressed for time, just go in blind. That's the best thing to do. And I honestly wish that I had, like, the front is so hard not to read. Like, I couldn't not see that he was caught stranded in the past. Look at it, it's right there on the front. Stranded in the past, right? So that was spoiled for me. I knew he was going to get stuck in the past. And I wished that they had not put that up there. That would have been fine. So, without going into the full-on rant section of the video, what did I think of Requiem? This was a very fun book. One of the funnest ones that I've read in a while. Again, I read it so fast. I was just captivated. I spent just basically 2 nights kind of straight reading it, ignoring other things that I probably should have did. But instead, I was focused on Captain Picard and his adventures in the past. I would actually say if you're going to read this book, maybe during or before you read it, watch the TOS episode Arena. I had not watched it in a while, and I kind of rewatched parts of it as I was going through this, and it plays a big part in this book. So the book basically takes place, for the most part, on the planet Cestus III, which is the kind of the where the episode Arena starts. So here you'll see the crew has just beamed down to the Cestus III outpost to find it devastated by the Gorn attack. So, if you watch this episode and then you read the book, it really kind of adds a lot to the detail because you're able to kind of see and picture this. And then this book just adds this incredible background to what this episode gave us, where it's filling in this whole colony's backstory, and you get to see these people, and you get to see so much, and it ends basically so dramatically. I would definitely recommend that watch the episode and then read the book, because it's going to add a lot to your read. So this has been a very, very, very fun TNG book. So I would recommend it to everybody. And with that said, let's just dive right into the full-on spoilery rant. The book starts out with an epilogue that begins 25 years ago with Picard aboard the Stargazer. And Picard apparently had a very crucial first contact with the Gorn. And in his meeting with the Gorn, he kind of assesses the situation correctly and faces the Gorn captain the right way and kind of impresses them and is able to establish a good kind of rapport with them through that meeting. So now we kind of flash forward ahead to where we're at now. And I don't think it ever states completely, but I want to say maybe TNG season 5, 6, something like that. Maybe 4, 5, 6. Barclay is featured, so, that would kind of factor in. But the Enterprise has been called to a summit. The Gorn are requesting Captain Picard his presence at a meeting, and the Gorn are facing some sort of political turmoil themselves, so they're going through some trouble there. So the Enterprise is on its way to the Gorn meeting. They have a few days before they need to arrive. So on their way, as they're heading there, and they're kind of skirting like Metreon space, that's right around there, they find this mysterious station shaped like a donut. This mysterious donut station. And they have a little bit of extra time, so they're able to spend some time checking that out. So, of course, they beam aboard first, a team of, scientists, Barclay and Geordi and a couple of engineers. And they go over there and kind of check things out, and everything's basically still, there's nothing like wrong with anything, but it's ancient and apparently has been abandoned for thousands of years. No signs of anything, no clue of who the inhabitants were. So they deem it safe, and knowing that the captain loves this kind of architecture and like ancient stuff, they see if he wants to come over, and he does. When he beams over, he kind of takes like the dime tour and checks it out and sees what everything's about. They can't really tell exactly like what the whole place is for because everything is powered down, but they can see that it's just like way outside of their technological league, But Geordi starts noticing little flashes with his visor, and then everybody starts noticing pulses and energy flashes, and something is going on within the station. There's power surges and things continually powering up, So they decide that they need to get the heck out of there. However, the transporters are now offline because of all these power surges. So Worf is sent over there in a shuttlecraft to rescue them, and they have to make their way to the airlock to get away. So they have this kind of mad dash to the airlock to get away. On the way there, they're crawling through these different tubes. As one of the engineers crawls through the tubes, the hatchway closes on them and cuts them directly in half. With basically, and he was the last one to come out before Barclay, which was right behind him. So this engineer is killed, and Barclay is like freaking out in the tunnel completely. Picard has to go back in to get him, to pull him out, and get him safely to the exit point. They get to the airlock, and they're able to get locks onto the initial people that made it there, Geordi and the other engineer. Barclay is able to make it there, but because Picard has to kind of shove him along, Picard shoves Barclay through. Picard is trapped there. All the others get beamed off, but he's behind this door that slams shut. Now he can't get beamed off. Now he looks for another way out, and then all of a sudden he sees a bright flash of light, and he's gone. Bum, bum, bum. That's right. That's a cool beginning for this. What happens is, first I think they kind of they don't really know what happens at all, and they're going back there to kind of examine the station, and they send a team back to the station, and this team Barclay kind of he realizes that it's his fault that the captain was lost, so he's the one that's most wanting to go back, So he wants to rejoin the team as well. Kind of the others dismay. They don't know if they can, but they decide to go ahead with it anyway. And Barkley, Geordi, Data, and another engineer, O'Connor, are sent back to the station there to try to see what happened and see what they can do. What has happened though, and they've kind of like they led on at first when they were like scanning the station, like, ooh, there's some kind of subspace energy. That means that this place could have things to do with space and time. So okay, so Captain Picard has been transported through time. Obviously, well, I knew this from reading the book anyway, or the cover of the book. So anyway, now we join the kind of the main point of the story here, which is Captain Picard, who has been transported back to Cestus III. Again, Cestus III. 4 days before Kirk and crew here arrive to find the place has been completely and totally annihilated. So, he is woken up by the doctor, and the doctor is Dr. Julia Santos, and he immediately is kind of taken with her and her attitude and just kind of everything. And then after that, he's kind of grilled by the Commodore there on the place, and his name is Commodore Travers. And it's funny because in the episode Arena, right at the beginning, they talk about how Travers has he always sets a very nice table. He always has a very nice dinner. And they mention that like again in the episode, and then they mention that here, and Picard's invited to this nice dinner that Travers puts on. At the nice dinner, basically Travers is just grilling Picard, wanting to know like who he is, where he came from. And he comes up with the story that he was a merchant captain, and he was attacked by cloaked Orions who destroyed the rest of his crew, or killed his crew, destroyed his vessel, took his cargo, and then transported him down to this area of Cestus III, which was prone to rock slides and just a terrible area, where the people found him. This is the area of Cestus III where they found Picard 4 days before the the attack by the Gorn. Just keep that in mind. That rock formation there. Anyway, so Picard is there in the infirmary of this colony. He has lost his communicator. They've scanned him, and they have found that he has this kind of more advanced artificial heart, and that also that he's just generally more healthy than the rest of them are because of the technology that he has in the future. So he kind of bumbles his way through it, saying that he's seen alien doctors that maybe know more than others, but you can tell that this Travers is kind of always completely suspicious of him. So it's at this point during the story where they kind of jump back into what is the Enterprise doing. And basically they have a set amount of time, I think like 6 days before they have to get to the Gorn conference or whatever. So that's the amount of time they have to search these planets. And with the crew of Data and Barkley and Geordi on the station, they've kind of sorted out that Picard more than likely has been transported to somewhere in the past, somewhere within this general vicinity. So they have the job of searching all of these M-class planets for some kind of sign of Picard. And they would hope that Picard would know, and of course Picard does know, to leave some kind of sign so that they would know what planet he ended up on. Like, it's really crazy. And one of the things that they kind of hint on is that maybe this station is Iconian in nature. Because they talk about this random, or basically this screen, which will keep showing these random images of different places over and over again. And that reminded me of the episode where they find that Iconian base, and it's like the same thing, these random images where they can then jump into and transport away to that. So I think that's what the author was going for here. This was probably an Iconian station or something like that. Or maybe a Metron station. I don't know. But the point is, they have a lot of planets to search, and they don't have a lot of time. With his command crew kind of, doing other things, Riker has given Ensign Rowe kind of first officer duties. And she has suggested to him that they need to enlist the help of a group of Bajoran outlaws called the Bon Amar, who can help them kind of search. And at first he's like, no, we can't do that. That's totally against regulations. No way. But then as time kind of ticks down and ticks down, and he takes more and more calls from Starfleet saying, hey, time is running out, he relents, and Ro is able to enlist the help of these outlaws, and it kind of expands their search area by quite a bit. So that's what's going on with them. Back on the station, Geordi, Data, and Barclay are hard at work to basically turn what happened as an accident, as him getting transported away because of a power surge, and find out how and why it happened, the place where it happened from, and just like make it work. And that's exactly what they do. So they go in with all their Starfleet know-how, and they figure it out kind of like station by station, circuit by circuit. How does this transporter work? How does it find them in the past? How does it calculate this? How does it calculate that? But the problem is, in doing that, they have to also deal with these power surges that are coming through. So when the next surge comes through, Data's able to kind of pump off the extra energy out of the way and avoid anything from happening, but they know that the next one could come at any time, and it would be devastating for recovering the captain. Basically, it would be over. So that's what's going on in the present. Back to the past. Captain Picard on Cestus III. Travers is suspicious of him. Santos is kind of falling for him, and he's kind of maybe falling for her as well. And he's hit with this kind of terrible problem of he knows that there's nothing he can do. He can't help the colony to survive. He can't interfere with history in any way whatsoever because it could have devastating effects on what would happen down the line. So he makes plans to basically head for the hills. First chance he gets, he's got to get out of there, find a way to leave a signal for his ship, and stay out of the way of history, basically. However, not to be. Before he can get out, he finds out that the chief engineer of the colony has rigged up a special way to increase the energy of their sensing system, their sensor system. In doing so, that's why they discovered basically the first kind of indication of something more out there, and that's of course is the Gorn that they've found there. But the way that they have increased their system is dangerous, and Picard knows that because he has seen what happens when they apply this. And what they're doing basically is stepping up the magnetic injection ratio by like a dozen points on their dilithium chamber, and that's a terrible idea. They think that they can do it because they're on a colony, and there's a couple ships in space with smaller chambers that have done this as well, and so far so good. It's been an experiment that's been working. However, Picard is from the future, and he knows that these two ships, the Iroquois and the Peerless, the Iroquois was destroyed, and the Peerless stopped these experiments because this doesn't work. So now Picard is stuck with this kind of situation where he knows the colony wasn't destroyed by the dilithium chamber going overboard. So he knows that he has to stop it from going overboard. So this is like the whole big time travel thing. It's like, was he always part of this story? Was he always there in the past? Yes, I think he was. That was part of it, you know? He was always part of that. So he has to go back, and he has to find a way to stop that from happening. Which he does. He's able to go back, and at this point in the story, he's been convinced, or he's been thrown in the brig, but he's convinced Dr. Santos that he is here to do the right thing, and she is convinced that he is telling the truth. Everybody else, though, is kind of following the Commodore Travers lead. I mean, as they should. But he's able to convince Dr. Santos to let him out, and then they're able to head to the engineering section, where he's able to commandeer a phaser and shut down the reaction. So at this point, kind of the jig is up. He's got to get away, and he heads for the hills as fast as he can, and realizes that he needs to find his communicator. His communicator is the only way that he's going to be able to send a message to the future, to let them know that he has been here on this planet. So to find his communicator, he has to go back to the place where he landed. This place right here. Now, why does he have to get it from here and remove it? because this is the place where Captain Kirk did his famous shelling. So this is where Kirk, of course, shelled the Gorn to kind of hold them off long enough that they could, return to the ship and then continue on with everything that happened in that episode. So, yep. So he has to get to that place, recover his communicator. He's able to do that. He gets there, he recovers it. However, he's cornered by all of the colony's crew and everything right then and there. But he's kind of saved by the bell, because at that point in time, the Gorn arrive. So it's awful. Like, he's happy. He's going to be able to get away and complete what he needs to do to not wreck history and then hopefully be recovered himself. But now he knows, like, what's here. And what's here is the massacre of these people that he spent the last, 4 days getting to know, So he's kind of torn at this point. And what does the moral Captain Picard decide to do? Of course, goes against the Prime Directive, goes against everything he should do, and tears down to the colony to see what he can do to help. Before this even happens, the colony's already under attack. They've been hit with salvos from space, and now they've already been there's Gorn transporting down, and Picard's already fought and dispatched a few of these Gorn. But now he has to. He makes the decision that he has to do something. He can no longer just sit by. So he heads for the colony. Back in the search for where he's at, the Bon Amar, these Bajoran outlaws, they give a short little spot with them, have located the signal of his badge on Cestus III. So they send that information over to Rowan Riker, who immediately reverse course and head back to the station, stop their search so that they can tell, and they send the information to the station. Now, Data has the last missing piece of the puzzle. He can begin his, just basically his plan to pull him back from the past. They've worked through all the information they need to get all these machines to work, and they know how they work. So now Data is full on going after it, fingers blurring, typing in, and is able to begin the process of locating and bringing Picard back from the past. As this is going on, however, another power surge has come up. So now Barclay and Geordi have the idea to go to another of these control stations in the station to siphon off more power. And Barclay, even though that he's got to run through possibly more doors that could cut him in half, musters up the courage to do that and goes along with Geordi. Actually, I think it's his idea in the first place, but they go along to take care of these power surges as best they can by drawing off this additional power. Data can do nothing but continue to work on this retrieval program, so he's kind of stuck what he's doing. Now, back in the past, you have the exciting conclusion of the book, and it is very exciting. Picard is basically they see him from where all the colonists are taking their last stand. They see Picard racing towards them, and they can tell that he's not with the Gorn. So they shoot a couple shots to help him get in there, and they realize that he's there to help them, So, and now you get this kind of great but terrible scene where Picard is there in the final place, witnessing the last stand, the very last stand on of everybody on Cestus III. So he's got to sit there and watch, and he does. He kind of sees it as his duty, sit there and watch and see all these people kind of meet their death at the hands of the Gorn. So he goes down, and again, it starts off with something like 50 colonists at first, and then it goes back and forth, and just everybody's getting wiped out, and they're just marching, and they're able to take out quite a few of the Gorn, but it's a losing battle, and everybody knows it. And it finally gets down to the last 12, and then 8, and then finally Dr. Santos tries to reach up and get somebody down that just kind of lost it and stood up, and that person gets shot, and then she catches part of the disruptor beam, and the Gorn disruptor beam catches you and then like spreads on your whole body and then like disintegrates you. So Picard has to sit there and like watch all these people that he's met, disintegrate, and it's finally down to just him and Travers at the very end, and they're like the last two there, and the other thing is Picard has not been firing on any of these Gorn. He's only there like to just be with them when they're dying. He knows that he can't shoot or kill any Gorn because maybe he wasn't supposed to, and if he does, that could affect the past, right? So he's just there, like faking his shots or doing something, but not taking anyone out, and like that's crazy, right? Like, oh, and there's this great quote too that I really loved that I think Dr. Santos said to him originally, and then he said to her as to like why he came back, and it was. There's no such thing as a meaningless sacrifice. Any positive act, no matter how hopeless or insignificant, is ultimately worthwhile. And I thought that was really nice. Like that was pretty good. So that was like his, why he came back. So in the last final like blasts, he's hit with this white blast of light, and he thinks he's done for, but it's not. It's actually Data has retrieved him, and he's been beamed back to the station, but the station is in the final throes of destruction, and Data's like, we gotta go, and they gotta head for the exit, and he's gotta run for the exit immediately. Like, what a 4 days he's had, my God. Back in the other substation with Barclay and Geordi, something is overloaded, and Geordi's been knocked unconscious. Barclay has to drag him back through, and then through these maintenance tunnels with these hatchways that are like closing erratically. So Barclay is like freaking out, but he's able to muster up the courage to pull, Geordi all the way through all these things to save his life. When they get to the shuttlecraft, O'Connell is there, Picard and Data are there, but they still do not have Barclay and Geordi, and they know that they're on their way. And Data asks Picard, would it be okay if I can expedite recovery? And Picard says, of course. And Data runs off really fast. I just thought that was fantastic, too. Expedite recovery. And, of course, Data comes back at a fast pace with Geordi on his shoulders and Barclay huffing and puffing to keep up with him. They make it to the shuttlecraft at the very last moment. Barclay trying to be brave and be like the last one on. Picard having nothing of it. Pushes Barclay on the shuttlecraft. However, the thing starts blasting right at that moment, and Picard gets knocked out, but Barclay grabs him and pulls him back in at the last moment, and the door shuts. And they safely make their way back to the Enterprise, and are able to make it to the Gorn conference in time. And they don't say what happens there, but that's not the story here. The story was Picard in the past, and how they brought him out of the past. That was the real story of this. So, and it was fantastic. It was such a good story. Again, it was so fun. Great quotes. There was just more than that one. There was a lot of other ones. An interesting look, and one of the other things I love about any of these books is when they take something from an episode and expand upon it. And that's what they've done here. And it was awesome. They did such a good job of filling out this backstory of this tragedy of Cestus III. There was one survivor. That's him. Lieutenant Harold. And the one survivor of Cestus III who would live to tell the story. But, man, it just really makes you think of all the stuff that Picard has gone through if you include all this book stuff. Because this is a whole nother giant awful thing to have to try to deal with. I can't imagine even trying to come back from that. But again, that's just a really well done, well written book, and really glad to have jumped right into that. So we have one more of the TNG numbered series before we're gonna switch it up to something else. So let's go ahead and slide over and have a peek at what's next. I'm gonna cover it up. I don't want to read the top. We're gonna read The Balance of Power by Deft Abhu, And I'm not going to read what it says up there. I'm going to try to avoid that. But Geordi and Picard doing something, and it's going to be good. Because these books are always good. So, alright, we're going to stop that right here. This has been fun. As always, everybody on YouTube, thank you so much for watching my videos and spending some time with me enjoying Trek books. Because it's just a fun thing to talk about. Everybody out there, live long and prosper. And we will see you all in the next one.